السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. هنكمل كلام على السيدز مع أول سيد اللي هي linseed أو بذور الكتان. Linseed is obtained from the dried ripe seeds of Linum myrtatismum family Linaceae. The linseed is ovate with compressed shape and having glossy brown color. In the narrow end of the seed there is a depression in which there is the micropyle and hilum are situated. There is a yellow rhythy running from one side to the other in the seed with yellow color. Longitudinal section in the seed perpendicular to the surface, showing two cotyledons and apical radicle in the small part of the seed. It is type of straight embryo. Seed is albuminous. There is endosperm. Most of the seed occupied by the cotyledon and the radicle situated in the small end or the narrow end of the seed. The depression of the narrow end situated at the hilum and micropyle. Microscopical sector in the linseed, showing testa composed of epidermis and hypodermis. The epidermis consists of large polygonal cells filled with mucilage, which is stained red with Rosaneum red. Epidermal cell, rectangular, large cell. There is stratification of mucilage and covered with thin cuticle. The epidermis followed by hypodermis of rounded collenchyma cells. The inner epidermis formed of narrow longitudinal elongated sclerenchyma following or next to the hypodermis, which is perpendicular to the hyaline layer. The sclerenchyma layer and the hyaline layer together forming a cross layer. The sclerenchyma is lignified with pitted walls. After the hyaline layer, we have a layer of pigment cells which give the linseed its characteristic color. The endosperm formed of thin wall polygonal parenchyma cell filled with oil globules and aileron grain. The endosperm polygonal parenchyma cell of thin walls and with intercellular spaces. Next to the endosperm, we have the embryo, formed of thin wall elongated parenchyma cells, also filled with aileron grain and oil droplets. Powder of linseed is grayish yellow to brownish in color, with characteristic odor and oily mucilaginous taste. Microscopically, the powder characterized by fragments of the epidermal cell in surface view, polygonal cell of thin wall covered with smooth cuticle, and epidermal cells in side view of the rectangular large cells covered with smooth cuticle and with the hypodermis below. Fragments of the pigment layer formed of polygonal cell filled with reddish brown content. The cross layer, which consists of the hyaline layer and perpendicular to it sclerenchyma layer, which are formed of lignified cells with pitted wall. And here is a fragment of the sclerenchyma without the hyaline layer. Photograph showing sclerenchyma layer, hyaline layer, and pigment layer, and the outermost epidermal cell filled with the mucilage. Photograph of the pigment layer, polygonal cells filled with the orange brownish content. The active constituent of linseed, containing about 40% of fixed oil. Up to 50% of this oil consists of linolenic acid, and 24% of linoleic acid. In addition to mucilage, protein, high percent of protein, and trace amount of cyanogenic glycoside known as linemarine. With the chemical test, we can test the mucilage in the epidermal cells by addition of ruthenium red, where a red color is obtained. Fixed oil is tested with Sudan 3, acquiring red color. Protein tested with Mellon reagent, give also red color. The cyanogenic glycoside linemarine can be tested by Grignard reagent or Grignard test, where a paper of moistened with sodium picrate is cover test tube containing the powdered seed with water heated in water bath. The yellow color of the paper is changed into orange color as a result of release of HCN, which convert the picric or sodium picrate into picramate with the orange color. Linseed, whole seed, can be taken for treatment of constipation due to its content of mucilage. Infusion of the seed taken for treatment of cough, as the linemarine has sedative to cough center. Poultice of linseed prepared by crushing the seed with water and boiling the crushed seed. This poultice is used as a remedy to treating boil, skin abscess, and skin ulcer and other skin irritation problems. Linseed oil containing many essential fatty acids, which are very good for treatment of eczema if applied topically, and also effective for menstrual disorders and effective for rheumatoid arthritis and atherosclerosis. The fatty acid constituent of the linseed oil belong to the group of omega-3 fatty acids, where they are described as good fat. The omega-3 fatty acids also exist in olive oil. There are many beneficial effects to omega-3 fatty acid, including its effect as it causes shrink of cancer cell, including breast cancer, prostate cancer, and lung cancer. Also, the omega-3 fatty acids have many beneficial effects on the cardiovascular system, as it decreases the elevated levels of triglycerides and cholesterol. Also, they are able to decrease the levels of homocysteine in blood, at the elevated levels of this amino acid considered as a major risk factor for the onset of heart disease in susceptible patients. Next seed is fenugreek, al-halba. Fenugreek is obtained from the dried seeds of Trigonella fenugreecum family Leguminosae. The fenugreek is official in Egyptian pharmacopoeia under the name Semen fenugreci. Microscopical character: the seed is oblong, flattened, rhomboidal in shape, having yellowish brown in color. It has characteristic aromatic odor and mucilaginous, faint bitter taste. There is a depression running on the seed, dividing the seed into two unequal parts. In the narrow part, situated the radicle, large part of the seed containing the cotyledons. Longitudinal section parallel to the surface, showing cotyledon and radicle, and in the depression situated the hilum and micropyle. Also T-cut in the fenugreek, showing two cotyledons and radicle on a straight line. The fenugreek herb, the leaves, seed and fruit. Microscopical study of the seed, showing testa consists of epidermis, hypodermis, and nutritive layer or hyaline layer. The epidermis consists of elongated palisade-like cells with thick lamellated walls covered with thick cuticle. These cells known as Malpighian cells. The epidermis followed by hypodermis consists of cells with thin wall intercellular spaces. The walls are thickened with bar-like thickening and constricted in the middle, giving basket-like appearance. So this layer is known as basket cells. After the hypodermis, there is collapsed layer of collenchyma of the hyaline or nutritive layer. Following the testa, there is the endosperm, the outermost layer of the endosperm, formed of cubical cells containing a long grain. Other cells are thin walls and showing stratification of mucilage. The mucilage in fenugreek described it as neutral mucilage. It acquires blue color with methylene blue. After the endosperm, we have the embryo formed of elongated cells or palisade-like cells containing fixed oil globules and aileron grain and with intercellular spaces. Powder of fenugreek is yellowish in color or to yellowish green with characteristic aromatic odor and the mucilaginous faint bitter taste. Microscopically, powder characterized by the testa in different views. Inside view, epidermal cells of the testa followed by hypodermis, and the Malpighian cells or the epidermal cells in top and basal view, followed by the basket cells or the hypodermis in surface view, and cells of the embryo elongated, filled with oil globules and aileron grain. Photographs showing the testa, Malpighian cell, basket cell, nutritive layer. Surface view showing the palisade-like cells or Malpighian cells in surface view. Basal view of the Malpighian cells or the palisade layer. Basket layer or the hypodermis in surface view. Basket cells in basal view. The fenugreek seeds containing steroidal saponin known as dogenine, which is responsible for many beneficial effects of fenugreek. In addition, there is dietary fiber, which is responsible for the blood sugar decreasing activity of fenugreek. Alkaloids as trigonelline, choline, carpine, and phenugreekine. Amino acid for hydroxyisoleucine, minerals as iron and selenium. Chemical test for the fenugreek by testing the mucilage, neutral mucilage by addition of methylene blue, which give blue color. Frost test for detection of saponin. Test for protein by addition of Mendelian reagent. Test for fixed oil by addition of Sudan 3 giving red color. Uses or medicinal uses of fenugreek. Fenugreek is effective in to help in digestion. Also, it has emollient effect due to the presence of fibers and mucilage. Poultice of fenugreek used topically for boils, cysts, and other skin complaints. Fenugreek reducing blood sugar level through the effect of phenugreekine alkaloid, which have hypoglycemic effect by slowing carbohydrate absorption and inhibit glucose transport. Also increasing number of insulin receptor in red blood cells and improve glucose utilization in peripheral tissues. The amino acid for hydroxyisoleucine also have direct stimulant effect on insulin secretion. The fenugreek containing natural expectorant activity, which is effective for treating sinus and lung congestion, loosen and remove excess phlegm and mucus. Also, fenugreek is an excellent source of selenium as one of the natural antioxidants. It is a natural source of iron, silicon, sodium, and thiamine. Also, fenugreek stimulates production of mucosal fluid, helping to remove allergens and toxins from respiratory tract. The chemical composition of fenugreek is similar to cod liver oil, for which decoction of the seed can be used as a substituent for cod liver oil. The fenugreek either extract exists in hard gelatin capsule, or the powder also exists in hard gelatin capsule preparations. Next seed is Strophanthus or poison arrow. The Strophanthus obtained from the dried ripe seeds of Strophanthus hispidus, Strophanthus combi, and Strophanthus gratus family Apocynaceae. The seeds are deprived of their awns. So there is an outgrowth on the seed, as we said before in the introduction. The outgrowth is an awn, which is a group of hairs carried on a stalk. When dealing with the seed for the active constituent, we remove the awns from the seeds. The seed is ovate lanceolate in shape with acute apex and obtuse base. The seed covered externally with silky hairs directed to the apex. Seed has yellowish color. Hilum and micropyle present in the apex, which is similar to linseed, as hilum and micropyle in linseed are situated in the depression of the narrow end. Microscopically, the seed composed of cotyledon, two cotyledons, and radicals situated in the narrow part of the seed, narrow testa, section perpendicular to the surface of the seed showing two cotyledons and the radicle in the narrow part. Addition of 80% sulfuric acid to the seed or the sector of the seed result in the development of emerald green color in the endosperm and the green color with red tinge in the embryo. This is in Strophanthus hispidus. Microscopically, the seed coat composed of epidermis, nutritive layer. The epidermis formed of tabular cell, tangentially elongated. Cells are extended into unicellular non-glandular hair. The hair are closely abreast to the epidermis, and they are all directed in one direction to the narrow end of the seed. There is one rib exists at the side of the hair. This rib is lignified. Following the epidermis, there is hyaline layer or nutritive layer formed of collapsed parenchyma cell. Afterwards, we have the endosperm of thick-walled parenchyma containing fixed oil globules, aileron grain, and small or few simple starch granules. Embryo formed of thin-walled parenchyma, showing also oil globules, aileron grain, and following the embryos following the endosperm. Powder of Strophanthus is grayish-green to yellowish in color, having faint odor and intense bitter persistent taste. Powder showing fragments of the epidermal cell extended into the hairs with the lignified rib in the side. Epidermal cells in surface view with the remaining of hairs, and part of the epidermal cells in side view with the underlying nutritive layer. Fragments of the endosperm, trichomes with one lignified rib at the side, and fragments of the lignified rib from hairs, and cluster of calcium oxalate which exist in the pigment layer below the hyaline layer. The active constituents in Strophanthus combi containing up to 10% of cardiac glycosides, known as K-strephancine. The K-strephancine is a mixture of different compounds: K-strephansoside, K-strephansoside B, Simarine, and Cimarol. All are cardiac glycosides, in addition to combic acid, trigonylene and choline bases, and fixed oil. As for Strephanthus hispidus, it contains also mixture of cardiac glycosides known as H-strephancine, while Strephanthus gratus containing ouabain cardiac glycosides. Comparison between the different species of Strephanthus, Strephanthus combi and Strephanthus hispidus and Strephanthus gratus. The Strephanthus combi obtained from Tanganyika, while Strephanthus hispidus and Strephanthus gratus are obtained from Sierra Leone. Color of Strephanthus combi is yellowish brown, while it is brown in Strephanthus hispidus and gratus. The calcium oxalate in Strephanthus combi exists as cluster and prism in the hyaline layer and embryo, while Strephanthus hispidus and gratus devoid of calcium oxalate. The active constituent: K-strephancine in Strephanthus combi, H-strephancine in Strephanthus hispidus, and ouabain in Strephanthus gratus. On addition of 80% sulfuric acid, there is a green color in the endosperm of Strephanthus combi and red color in the embryo, while the endosperm and embryo of Strephanthus hispidus producing green color. Endosperm and embryo of Strephanthus gratus acquire rose red color. The next seed is Nux vomica, الجوز المقيء. The Nux vomica obtained from the dried ripe seeds of Strechnus Nux vomica family Luganiaceae. Dried ripe seeds of Strechnus Nux vomica family Luganiaceae. The seed is disc-like shape, compressed in the center, nearly flattened. Fresh seeds have grayish green color, while dried seeds have brownish color. The seed is very hard, with satiny sheen appearance due to presence of a pressed hair radiating from the center to the circumference of the seed. The hairs are from the center directed to the circumference or the end of the seed. All hair have the same direction. This is the reason of the satiny sheen or the silk-like appearance of the seed. The hilum exists on the raised part on the center of the seed. The hilum is connected with the micropyle by also raised ridge. There is large endosperm and small chordate shaped embryo or heart-like shaped embryo. Sector in the seed showing endosperm surrounding central cavity, and near the micropyle there is cotyledon of heart-like shape and small radicle. T-cut in the seed showing the central cavity, the endosperm, and seed coat or testa. Microscopically, the testa formed of epidermal cell, formed of polygonal cell, each cell is extended into non-glandular unicellular hair, strongly lignified and thickened with 8 to 10 ribs. The epidermal cell is also lignified. Following the epidermis, there is hyaline or nutritive collapsed layer. Endosperm formed of polygonal of thick-walled parenchyma composed of hemicellulose. Walls of the endosperm or the endosperm cells consist of hemicellulose instead of cellulose in other and previous seeds. Cells of the endosperm are connected to each other by means of fine protoplasmic threads known as plasmodesma. This is threads of plasmodesma connecting cells of the endosperm with each other. The contents in the endosperm is fixed oil and aileron grain. Powder of Nux vomica is grayish brown in color with faint odor and intense bitter taste. The major fragments in the powder of Nux vomica are lignified fragments at the ribs of the hairs, epidermal cell or the base of the hair, also lignified fragment from the hair, the endosperm cells of thick walled and sometimes showing the plasmodesma threads, side view showing the endosperm. Here the embryo cells are not clear, as we said that the most of the seed occupied by the endosperm, and embryo is only very small and heart-like shape or chordate shape. Photograph showing the epidermal cells, and each cell is extended into lignified unicellular non-glandular hair and endosperm cells. This hyaline layer following the endosperm and fragment or ribs of the lignified hair. The active constituent alkaloids belong to the indole nucleus, mainly brucine and strychnine, in addition to caffeotannic acid and leuganine glycoside. Chemical test for Nux vomica, there is general text for alkaloid, which is alkaloid extract with alcohol or acidulated water, then filtered. To the filter add few drops of Mayer reagent. A white precipitate is formed. Test for strychnine. The strychnine present in the inner part of the endosperm on addition of Mendelian reagent, which is sulfovanadic acid. The inner part of the endosperm acquire violet color due to presence of strychnine. Addition of concentrated nitric acid to a sector of the Nux vomica. The outer part of the endosperm will acquire crimson color due to presence of brucine. Test for hemocellulose, the cells of the endosperm. Violet color is obtained on addition of iodine and sulfuric acid. Test for chlorogenic acid. In presence of ammonia, the chlorogenic acid slowly oxidizes with production of gradual green color. Nux vomica used in very small doses as bitter tonic and appetite stimulant and stimulating gastric secretion. Due to presence of indole alkaloid, strychnine and brucine, Nux vomica has stimulant effect on heart and respiratory center, as it has stimulant effect on spinal cord. Nux vomica also used in dyspnea and appetite loss, also used in chronic constipation due to atony of the intestine, and used in acute infectious disease and in shock after surgical operation, and in condition associated with dyspnea. Also used as antidote for poisoning by opium, lead, tobacco, or barbiturate. Large doses of Nux vomica cause tetanic convulsions followed by death due to respiratory collapse. Thank you and good luck.